How's it going, everybody? I'm the BTC Reaper, and my goal on this channel is to teach you how to reap the rewards of trading, whether price is going up or down. Kathy Wood's ARK Invest Refiled Bitcoin ETF application. Here's what's new. The latest version, filed on October 11th, introduces additional risk warnings associated with the Bitcoin network that could negatively affect the price of an ETF, among other minor adjustments. These new risks include minor issues related to electricity consumption, a community-driven upgrade to Bitcoin source code, and competition within the industry. Furthermore, it stipulates that the custodian, in this case Coinbase, will hold assets back in the ETF in segregated addresses on the Bitcoin blockchain and will not be commingled with corporate or other customer assets. SBF trial live updates. Did Alameda YOLO FTX customer funds? Kind of goofy title. Christian Drappy, a former software engineer at Alameda, was called to testify following the government star witness, Caroline Ellison. Last November, he was present in Hong Kong when Ellison told the Alameda employees that they were shutting down the trading desk during an all-hands meeting. He said he recalled being utterly stunned to learn FTX customer funds were used to repay Alameda's lenders. He said, "I'm sure this wasn't a YOLO thing," he asked her during the meeting, trying to ascertain whether deliberate meetings or decisions had led to the alleged misuse of FTX customer funds, and he said he resigned from the trading firm in less than a day after that. Ex-Voyager CEO sued by CFTC and FTC for misleading customers. The complaint accuses the founder of both fraud and registration failures related to its operation of an unregistered commodity pool, which the CFTC believes applies to many cryptocurrencies, such as Bitcoin. Elric and Voyager falsely touted the Voyager platform as a safe haven to earn high-yield returns to introduce customers to purchase and store digital asset commodities, wrote the CFTC in a statement on Thursday. The agency now seeks permanent registration and trading bans on Elric alongside restitution, dishonorment, and civil monetary penalties. Quick CPI update. Consumer Price Index went up by 0.1% on the month and a year. So that was above the 0.3%, 3.6%. We got 0.4% and 3.7% for the month and year over year respectively. Shelter costs were the main factor for this increase. Core CPI was in line with expectations, and the real average hourly earnings fell by 0.2%, but on the month were up 0.5% for the year. So a year ago we're doing better, but if the monthly average continues for both shelter and hourly earnings, it's going to get more difficult to afford things. Well, to go back to the Dixie because I recorded this video and I did an update and everything decided to change on me. So price action is trying to pump. We are trying to get that corrective move up, a very big move up. It's way more, about twice as big as we're looking for. This is a drastic pump to the upside, so we could see more stair-step action to the downside to correct this action. RSI wants to head up, momentum wants to get a bit of a bounce here. Our VWAP is trying to push that neutral, but it's kind of tapering off, so I would keep a close eye on this. Now money flows overall pushing out, rounding away, even though we're trying to pump up. So if this money flow starts to reject away, while price action tries to come up, that'll show that we have a bit of manipulation pumps going, as we have more selling action when the money flow is red. Over on our total for the daily, we did get a pretty decent move from that manipulation X. We can't get above this EMA level right now. Our RSI is overall trending out, stochastics overall trending away. That stochastic's pretty beat down. Our money flow is pushing away from that neutral. We are in a pretty decent bearish trend with that money flow. That VWAP's in the bearish trend as well, but with how many red candles we have here, there's likely going to be some sort of retracement, just like we saw with Dixie. The momentum does want to get a bit of a round up, and the VWAP is trying to push forward, so we may have some sort of short-term move to the upside if we're able to break above this -7 zone. If we can break above that, then we will see continued price action up. However, if we do not break above this -7, then it is very likely we will see a push to the downside. If we zoom out, you can see this was a bit of a double bottom that could be forming. So drop, rise, drop. If this does form a double bottom, we could push to the upside. However, there's also a second possibility here. We have a bit of an up channel going on. So if this up channel takes over and we pump up and get rejected, the double bottom would have played out, and then the up channel could take over and bring us down and push us lower, as the up channels are bearish patterns. Over on Bitcoin dominance, we are trying to retrace some of our loss percentage, so some people did move a little bit more into Bitcoin, even though Bitcoin has more selling action going on today. Stochastic is starting to round away, RSI is trending out, momentum is pushing away with a double red dot, and that VWAP is getting lower highs. Alright, the money flow is pushing away as well, so we're not very strong here. And money flow is trending out. VWAPs in the bearish territory did round out pretty strongly. If the money flow follows suit, then we could get a pretty decent push to the downside, which would signal people are either moving from Bitcoin to stablecoins, or possibly dollars, or some other altcoins if our total starts to pump. But the total is looking a little crummy as well. Over on Bitcoin futures, we are getting a bit of a manipulation X. We did come up to that tight zone that we were looking at, and we are starting to kind of reject it. So if this manipulation X takes over, that would be a little bit of push to the upside, which could show bulls try to take over, but the bears suppress them, and we could ultimately slide. That would be a pretty strong move, and we could fill that gap. Momentum is starting to round away. Stochastic's pushing away, RSI is trending out, that VWAP's in the bearish territory getting lower lows, and that money flow is maintaining strong bearish trend. Until this money flow starts to reverse, we will see continual price action down, unless this VWAP gets some crazy run ups like back here. Over on Bitcoin, we have a bit of a manipulation X that wants to bring us down. We have fallen back into our pattern and confirmed a break into it. We have also confirmed a break of our EMAs. We have about 13 minutes, so we could get some crazy spikes that invalidates this, but we'll have to see. By the time this video is out, you can take a look. Stochastic is pushing down, RSI is trending away, that VWAP is trending out, and the money flow is overall pushing down in a bearish trend. So we have a bearish trend with the money flow and VWAP. Overall, that daily is not looking too strong here. If the lower time frames continue weakness, then we are likely going to continue to the downside and see this pattern take over. RSI is pretty flat here. Our stochastic does want to push up. Our stochastic slightly in that bullish territory. We'll have to see if it can maintain above this 30. If our stochastic breaks below 30, our RSI is likely going to follow it, pushing everything else lower. That VWAP is in a bit of a bearish trend as we're struggling to get higher highs. We're struggling to get above this 5 zone. If we cannot break above this 5 zone and push decently with our stochastic, then it is very likely our money flow could reject here and the VWAP will start to break bearish, at which point the momentum will get a red dot and push us down. Over on the 2 hour, you can see we got a retest of our pattern and we did get rejected twice. Well, 3 times with those wicks. So we did already make our retest. We don't really need to get another retest. We did it on the 4 hour as well. Our stochastic is trying to push forward. Our RSI is starting to push away though. So if that stochastic doesn't maintain the strength, the RSI is likely going to start to fall here. Our VWAP is struggling to break above this 7, about 8 zone. So if we do not maintain above this zone, we're likely going to get a push to the downside. If we're followed by a red candle here, we'll likely have a bearish candle pattern that could break us down. If you're not familiar with those kind of patterns, join us in the Discord, smash that like, and hit the subscribe. That's the only way to get one of those statues you see printing behind me in that blue light. The money flow is overall trending out, so overall, the bears have more control on these lower time frames. The 1 hour, the stochastic is about to make a bearish cross, so our RSI could start to make a bit of a break to the downside from here. We are again rejected by a higher EMA level, so if we see a strong red candle, that is likely going to push us to the downside and we'll see lower lows. RSI is pretty flat overall, but it's starting to point down, so I would exercise caution. Our VWAP is starting to round away, and the money flow is trying to push forward, so that is good for bulls, but if the VWAP continues to round away, we're not going to get too much action to the upside. The momentum does want to cross that neutral, but with the VWAP starting to lose strength, that could be in danger of starting to get a red dot and get invalidated. Over on graph for the daily, we are breaking that support level where we had that kind of flag and pushing down from it. RSI is overall trending out, stochastic trending away, and money flow is maintaining a bearish trend. If it breaks a lower low, we will have a confirmed bearish trend that could break us lower, and we could see this flag play out. That would bring us down to around that 6.5 cent zone. Our VWAP is overall trying to trend up though, so that is good for the bulls. If that VWAP can manage to cross through and gain some strength, then we could see push to the upside. However, if our VWAP just does what it did back here, where it gets a little bit of a push and goes sideways, we could continue sideways action or a push to the downside. Momentum is overall pushing out, but that could reverse if our VWAP can break above this resistance area right around this negative 5.5 zone. Over on the 4 hour, we are starting to get rejected by our EMA level. The bulls tried to push us up, but the bears may be in control. Stochastic is trying to round away. RSI is overall pushing down. Our VWAP is maintaining bearish strength, and our money flow is maintaining bearish strength as well. If the money flow maintains this range and the VWAP continues this range or even pushes lower, we are likely going to see continual sideways or downside action, respectively. We have a green dot on our momentum that wants to push us forward, so I would watch for a bit of a cross. We may get a temporary relief bounce, maybe another retest of this resistance, at which point if we reject that resistance there, at that retest, then it is very likely we will push to the downside. Over on the 2 hour, stochastic's overall pushing out. RSI is starting to go flat. Our VWAP is struggling to get above this 10.5 zone, so if our VWAP can't break above this zone, we're likely going to see bearish action. The money flow is trying to push that neutral, but it's starting to stall under it, so it could start to round off and maintain the bearish strength. The momentum does have a bullish divergence that wants to push us forward as that VWAP is crossing that neutral, so we'll have to see if it can get a new high. If it can get a new high, we could push forward. However, if we keep zigzagging in this range, we may maintain this bearish action. Even though we are in a descending channel, that should break us slightly to the upside before any downside. Over on the 1 hour, we are starting to get a bit of a rounding top pattern. Again, if you're not familiar with those, join us in that Discord. Stochastic's starting to round away. RSI is starting to point down as a result. Our VWAP is starting to lose strength, bringing our momentum and money flow down. So if we continue to see this trend, we could push lower. We don't have too clean of a down channel, so if we just get a rejection and then some sideways and a push, we could just see this trend continue. Over on Anchor for the daily, we are getting a bit of a push under our support level for our flag, so we do have a bit of a confirmation of a breakdown. RSI is pushing away, stochastic's pushing away, and money flow wants to break to the bearish side, and our VWAP has gone pretty flat here. If our VWAP cannot break to the upside and gain some decent strength above this negative 10, like 11 zone, then it is very possible the bears will maintain control and the money flow could flip bearish. If that happens, we could get a pretty strong move to the downside. Our pattern does have the potential to bring us to about 1.5 cents. Over on the 4 hour, we are overall trending away. We do have that lower gap that we could fill. We do have some other gaps we can fill before that though, so we'll get into that on the lower time frames. Our stochastic does want to trend up. RSI is pretty flat. That money flow wants to break that neutral, and the VWAP's trying to push off as well. If we can get a strong green candle from here, we could see bullish action resume. However, if both these things push away here, we're going to maintain bearish action. So I would watch these lower time frames closely. Over on the 2 hour, we have a gap to the upside. So we could push up, fill that gap, but I would watch the 1 hour as well. Stochastic is starting to round away. RSI has gone pretty flat. Our VWAP is in the bullish territory, but we're kind of just zigzagging in a range, maintaining bearish action. That money flow is maintaining bearish strength and rejecting away from that neutral, so if it pushes and makes a new low, we could get a pretty decent move to the downside, which would probably be that filled spot. Again, gaps are 80%. That's why we cover them every time they happen. Over on the 1 hour, you can see we have another gap right here. That's that upside gap to about 1877. We also have that lower gap to 18.5 cents. So we could push, fill that higher gap, especially since we're above this EMA level. But then we could hit this lower gap and possibly continue a move to fill the even lower gap around that 1728 zone. We are trying to make a pretty strong move with this green candle. Stochastic is trying to round away though, so we may form some sort of divergence. RSI is starting to point to the downside. Our money flow has gone pretty flat. Our VWAP is struggling to get a new high, so we are maintaining a range that could end up just continuing the sideways downside action. That momentum does want to push to the upside, unlike these previous momentum waves, so as that can continue, then we do have hope to push up, but again, it may not be much more further than this 1877 range. Over on XRP, we did push toward our value area low. If you look over to our bigger volume profile that is from this range down here, not just our bigger snap up that we made from that range, which is our lower volume profile here, we are rejecting away from the value area high. Tomorrow, if we get a red candle and confirm that, then we are likely going to push to the downside, and we could break this value area low for our current trend, at which point we could see the point of control for the bigger trend play out. That's why we still have that support level around that 38 zone, and our pattern can take us to about 40 cents, so we have a few things that can take us down there, as well as a big candle wick. Our RSI is overall sliding, stochastic is pretty beat down, the VWAP is maintaining strong bearish trends, and our money flow is maintaining bearish action as well. If this money flow does not snap away from this trend, around this like negative 8.7 zone, or around negative 5 actually, sorry my mouse moved, around negative 5.5 we'll say, to about negative 0.1, this is kind of our bearish trend. If we do not snap away from this trend, this downside action is likely going to continue. Momentum is pushing out, so I would keep an eye on things. Over on the 4 hour, we have a bullish cross on our stochastic. RSI wants to push forward. That VWAP is trying to kind of push up, but again, we have a bit of a bearish trend happening as we're maintaining a range here and pushing lower. Money flow is maintaining bearish strength, which is helping push us down. The momentum keeps highlighting bullish divergences, but again, those don't necessarily have to push you up in a bearish environment. The money flow, if it can snap above this negative 10 zone, may be able to push us forward, but that VWAP is going to have to snap out of this range as well for that to happen. Over on the 2 hour, we are starting to get a bit of a rejection from a higher EMA, so if we confirm that rejection, we could continue this trend to the downside. Our stochastic is starting to round away, and our RSI is meeting a resistance kind of around this 42 zone. If it pushes down here, we could break that 30 and get some bearish strength there. The VWAP is starting to round away, it's struggling to break above this 15. It did get right around there right here, and that did start this first trend to the downside, so that could start us down pretty decent if we break from here. The momentum does want to push to the upside with the double green dot with a bullish divergence, but again, those don't necessarily have to help you very much. Here we got a little bit of a pump and a rejection. Here, you could say this is our little bit of a pump, and we could be starting our rejection, so I would watch very closely. Over on the 1 hour, we are starting to curl with this EMA. If that continues and this candle breaks through this higher EMA that is below us, we will see continued bearish action. However, if we bounce off this lower higher EMA under us, then we could continue it to the upside and break this higher EMA above us. Our stochastic is getting a bearish cross and does want to push under. RSI is looking like it could start to roll away with that bearish cross. Our momentum is starting to round out. That VWAP is trying to break to the bearish side, and the money flow is starting to reject from the neutral. If this VWAP breaks to the bearish side and this money flow rejects, we could continue this downside action. Last time that happened, we did get a pretty significant move to the downside. Over on algo for the daily, we are trying to maintain this flag. We're trying to get a little bit of a push with tomorrow's candle. We'll have to evaluate that tomorrow though. Our RSI is overall trending out, stochastic's coming down, and money flow is breaking into the bearish territory, and that VWAP is starting to curl away. If that VWAP makes a lower high here, we would confirm a bearish trend that could break us down. Momentum's overall pushing down pretty strong, so I would watch these lower time frames pretty closely. Over on the 4 hour, we are kind of coming back down. We want to push up back to our EMA, so we'll have to see if we can touch that EMA and break through. If we get toward that EMA and reject, then it's very likely we could break the support. Stochastic is starting to trend out, RSI is pushing down, that VWAP is in the bearish territory, and the money flow is struggling to get above this negative 5 zone. If we push down below this negative 5 zone, we could maintain this bearish trend that we're in, so just keep that in mind. The momentum is pushing under after a red dot that brought us on down. Over on the 2 hour, we have a bit of a Bart Simpson kind of happening here, so if that does happen, continue. We just zigzag around here. That could break us to the upside, push us forward. However, we do keep touching the support and resistance area. which could break us down as well. The stochastics overall rounding out, RSI is kind of pushing down, VWAP is maintaining a bearish range, and the money flow is maintaining a bearish range as well. The momentum is pushing out, so overall, if we don't get some strong bullish action and break this higher EMA level, it's very likely we'll break the support and continue to the downside. Over on the 1 hour, we are getting a confirmation of that breakdown, and we are starting to reject for another push for these EMAs. That's kind of how you read them. Stochastic is going to push to the downside, RSI is starting to push out, our money flow wants to break to the bullish side with our VWAP, so we'll have to see if those can maintain bullish action. If not, then we could just see this trend continue and finally break to the downside. You can see it's more of a right side up Bart Simpson here, which those break you to the downside. However, if you're looking at the bottoms, because we broke down and then did it, we could get pushed to the upside from it. Thank you for watching tonight's video. I hope you have a wonderful night.